Um, I'm Mandy Guidry, and this is Megan Burnside. Welcome. We're excited that you're here, and we're really excited to share this presentation. And I think it's really great that that you have come. I think a lot of people right now in their lives are experiencing a lot of emotional emergencies. I know I am, and so I'm excited to talk about some practical tools that can help while in the midst of an emergency. Today I'm excited that Megan's here to teach with me, and she's mostly going to teach the class because I actually really need this class right now. And she's actually writing a book right now about, what is it called?
Yeah, practical tools for an emotional emergency.
Perfect. So that's what we're going to discuss today. Megan is a good friend of mine. We met about 2 years ago now. Which is crazy. It's flying.
Yeah.
It's flying. It has been 2 years actually. And we were talking, and I had shared with her some of the things that my family was going through medically, and she knew I was a nurse, and she asked if I had ever tried any essential oils, and I told her that I had no time or money in my life for witchcraft, and she was still nice to me after.
The best. The best rejection I had ever gotten.
Pretty good. It was pretty impressive. So a couple weeks later I called you, and I was really I had time and money at that point because I had some medical things that were going on with our family that we really needed some help with. So anyway, now I'm here, and Megan is a mentor to me and just a great friend, somebody I am just really grateful that she's in my life. And so I'm excited to hear some of the things that she has to share today. And I did want to mention, just before I turn the time over to her, that I think that, like I said, I think a lot of us are struggling with emotions right now. I feel like the heat has sort of turned up in life on this earth, and that a lot of us are looking for options and things that will benefit us. And so I hope that you get what you need and that you find it valuable today. So.
Awesome. And I also want to say that I love working with Mandy, and I really love her desire to integrate all of the tools that we have to help us emotionally and medically. And I think that she is, like, I love seeing her leadership in that, and her desire to pull together people who, in the medical profession and outside the medical profession, and just to integrate that, the different tools that we have available to us, alternative methods of healing and of, finding peace and finding health. So I love that about Mandy, and I'm grateful that you are having me join and talk about my book. So
thanks for coming. Well, it's kind of funny that we're having this talk right now, because I feel like we've both kind of had some emergencies today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of miraculous that we're both sitting here, and chatting. So
it's very timely.
Yeah, it's good for all of us.
And I'm sure for those of you watching, I mean, obviously you're watching for a reason, so it's probably timely for you. So
yeah.
So so the different so my book is specifically about tools to help with emotional emergencies. So these are any time that the emotions are so strong that it's hard to function. So and everybody has that, in their lives at some point, where it's just really hard to keep going and keep functioning because of the emotions that are coming up and accumulating. So so there are different tools and techniques that I'll talk about today, and also the science behind it. But there's also a spiritual side behind it as well. And I think they're both important. I mean, science and spirituality really go hand in hand if you'll allow it to. So
I have one thing to say about that. One thing that I loved learning about, initially Megan shared essential oils with me, and one thing that I loved was how much research she had done and how much she knew, and she really loves that aspect, which was really helpful for me in taking these things seriously, because for me, it had kind of been the stuff that was out there. And so anyway, but I also, as we've grown to know each other better, she's shared so much of that spiritual side with me. And so I think this message is really powerful because of that.
And for me, in my own growth, understanding kind of how, the holistic, if you think about the word holistic, whole is the root word because we are whole individuals. We're not, separated into physical and having nothing to do with emotional. They are very much intertwined. And so, along with spiritual as well. And so I have learned a lot on the science side of essential oils and some of these other things, the nervous system, which I'll talk about today. But the spiritual side is so important. And I think that, this, like you said, the science side is great, especially for people's belief levels, because a lot of people want to see the proof. They want to know that it's true. And so they like the science. And I love, all of the science, and it's fascinating. And then the spiritual side of it is kind of like the more expanded, like bigger, truth. So
I feel like for me, understanding the physical part of how I have gotten to this point, like why I'm feeling these huge emotional feelings, why I'm at that point where I'm feeling stuck or unable to move forward. I feel like understanding the science behind that helps me spiritually. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Because they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And they support each other. Mm-hmm. So when we have strong emotions that come up, a lot of it has to do with our autonomic nervous system. That's kind of the focus that I put. There are a lot of factors we have. Neurotransmitters and hormones, and there's a lot that go on. Our diet affects things, our environment affects a lot of things. So there are many, many components of why people are experiencing a lot of the anxiousness and low mood and having a difficult time with dealing with emotions. There's a lot of aspects to it. One of the biggest ones that I have seen is the nervous system and how it shifts, like how it protects us. But and so learning how to work with our bodies and understanding what's going on can help us to have, it's funny, the word self-mastery. Like self-mastery, we think of it as like, okay, I'm not going to eat that cake, or I'm not going to, do this or that. But self-mastery can just mean understanding your body and understanding how to work with, like, what's going on in the process, and understanding how to work, because we're intelligent. We're the most intelligent beings on earth, arguably, and in the way that we can consciously change a lot of our thoughts and patterns that animals don't seem to, and behaviors. So that's the cool thing about understanding this, is then you can consciously work with your body instead of against it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do it like a brief sciencey explanation. Is that okay?
Awesome.
Okay.
Yes.
So our autonomic nervous system is made of a few different parts, and two of the parts are the parasympathetic nervous system. Can I put my hands up here? And the sympathetic nervous system, and they're like a teeter-totter. When one is triggered or when one is activated, the other one is dampened, and the opposite is true. So, and one of them is in charge of the parasympathetic nervous system is also called fight or rest and digest. Parasympathetic nervous system is kind of in charge of helping us to feel calm and helping our stomach digest. It's also in charge of the reproductive function. So, when you're stressed out, you don't ever feel like you're, like in the mood, right? That's part of the parasympathetic nervous system. All of these functions help with long-term building of our bodies, long-term things like digestion and using the building blocks to, build up our body and things like that, and reproduction, our posterity and that kind of thing. When we're triggered into the sympathetic nervous system, and anything can trigger it that we feel like is a threat. So it could be, we could be chased by a bear, but also could be confrontation with a coworker or with, a spouse. It can be triggeed by just imagining what would happen if our child ran out into the street. That will trigger. If you think about that, you might notice like, a change in your physical body, and in your mind. So, and in your emotions. So when we're triggered into that, that's called fight or flight, is also another name for it, fight or flight or freeze. Because we also, you'll notice like when you're driving and an animal sees a car coming, it might freeze. That's another response of the sympathetic nervous system. So that one is, when that is triggered, then it shuts down those other building activities, because it's like needs to run, right? So all those other things are not important, and they're not in the hierarchy of like, right now we need to run, or right now we need to fight, or whatever it is. Right now we just need to survive. So digesting food shuts down, reproductive anything shuts down. Our blood goes to our arms and our legs so that we can fight or flee. And there's just a lot, like and one of the coolest things is that we are heightened, our senses are heightened, but in a negative way. So we're looking for threats, like we're heightened for things that are threatening. So that's how like things get really blown out of proportion.
Yeah,
it's
big.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been in that experience where like you feel kind of threatened by something your spouse said or something, and you just like see everything that's like, oh, you did not just do that, or you notice like little things, somebody didn't text you back on time or whatever, and it's just like all these things,
and it gets huge.
Yeah,
it's massive.
Yeah, it looks bigger in your view, because all our sensory circuits are actually sensitized to see threatening information. So it's
crazy.
It is good to know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I right now am in a panic, and so I know that what I'm seeing is not probably accurate, and it's not probably necessarily a threat.
Yeah.
So just understanding that is really beneficial. So one way that we are different from like the gorilla that was chased by a tiger and lived, so the tiger's coming at it, sympathetic nervous system shuts down, and then fight or flight comes up, and so it has all the blood it needs to run, and it takes off, and it like gets away. So it gets away and it's free. Mm-hmm. So after that happens, it just goes back to normal functioning. And so this system, or this the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, protects us. It's supposed to be there, and it's good. And actually, if we never did have it, our muscles would start to atrophy. Like we need it. And so it's good for us. But then the problem that we have is after we are in a confrontation, we think about it. Mm-hmm. And we think about it, and we stew over it, and we think of what we would have said, and we think of what we could have said, and we think of what would have happened if I had said this, or we just think about it and think about it and think about it. Mm-hmm. Or so we're kind of living in the past threats, or we'll think about the future and say, oh my gosh, if I don't get to this thing on time, I might get fired. And if I get fired, how am I going to pay my bills? And if I don't pay my bills, like how am I going to feed my family? And like all we think in the future, right? So that also triggers a low stress, or that triggers fight or flight. And so when we're thinking about the past and we're thinking about the future in these, stressful states, our brain doesn't know the difference. And so we are in a low level of fight or flight all the time. So if you think about so many people have digestive problems, because it's actually like not a priority when you're stressed out. People have fertility problems, or how many Viagra ads do you see on the side of your mail, or whatever? That's a real problem right now. So people are having difficulties with their reproductive systems, and there's just a lot of things that are long-term problems because of where our mind is. Mm-hmm. What we're focusing on and thinking about. Yeah.
Which is so interesting, because we don't have a wild animal. I mean, really, exactly. For the most part, we don't have what initially it was given to us to protect us from. Right. But so much of it, I feel like so much of it is just our society and how busy we are, and how the expectations. I mean, we'll talk more about that, but how it literally feels like there's a wild animal after us. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, my husband likes to, when I talk about this, and I kind of wish he was here because he likes to translate it. And he loves to talk about how the parasympathetic nervous system is like this yogi, like Zen, peaceful, like in a state of calm. And the sympathetic nervous system is actually a superhero. Like it's there to protect us,
Yeah.
The problem is like we just sometimes live in that state all the time when we're always needing to be protected. And like you said, there really is no threat there at the moment. In fact, 98% of the time, we could be in a peaceful state, but we're living in our brain in a stressful state because of what we're.
Because for some reason our brain is super dangerous.
Yeah.
Something going on in there is super
dangerous. That's why I'm teaching this so we can work with it, right?
Yeah.
It can be super dangerous, but it can be super powerful.
Yeah. I love that analogy. I want to be a yogi.
Right. I know. Yeah.
That's great. Well, it reminds me, yesterday I had an experience where I just sort of had that low, I live with that low underlying anxiety.
Do, yeah.
And really like nothing, literally nothing. When I go back, set me off, like maybe one of my kids was crying, but it was enough to just tip it. So then it was really like, it felt super emergent, you know? And so I'm excited to hear more about these tools. I have been using some of these tools. I think that they're very powerful, and when I do it consistently, but then I don't really want to have an underlying anxiety about not using tools either,
Yeah.
So I think it's important to talk about these things because they really can be powerful in helping us to kick out of that fight or flight.
Yeah.
But hopefully it won't be another source of anxiety. Hopefully it's something that just you can use as a tool.
It's a tool to benefit you. So don't be stressing out that you're not using it.
Yeah. Just be aware that you can.
Yeah. That's one of the tools that I talk about has to do with like the emotions that surround our negative emotions. Like a lot of times we feel like, oh, like what is wrong with me? Like I'm just in a funk today. And a lot of times we're just sad because of something. And if we allowed ourselves to be sad, we'd actually move through it faster than like feeling guilty and shameful and like angry at ourselves and all these, like it just compounds all these emotions, and it just, there's this stack. When if we had just been like, I'm sad and that's okay.
Yeah.
Then it would actually be not as bad as we make it.
A couple weeks ago, I was doing I don't know if this is one of the tools you'll talk about, but I was writing about how I was feeling and my emotions.
It is.
And I always feel like I end up at anger. Like it was funny because I posted the picture for this class, and it's like two people's hand, like it's two hands gripped together, and my husband's like, that's kind of dramatic, isn't it? And I'm like, hey, that's my emergency, right? Like that's where I end up at. And I love that concept because I feel like I'm actually feeling sad, but I don't stay there very long. I end up mad, or angry. And I think that that's a really interesting concept to just identify what that emotion is. And like you said, to work through that. Figure that out. So.
Yeah. And probably the anger is a defense mechanism because when you're sad, you're vulnerable. And then you get to, or, whatever, secondary
you
emotions.
have much more control, kind of. Like you feel like you can, at least I can control things when I'm angry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can make things happen.
Yeah.
It's more powerful state maybe than just being sad about something.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's really what she was talking about, that writing is really powerful. I guess we could talk about that first. That's not my first one, but that's one of the ones that has helped me the most probably this past year, has been writing things down. I call it, what do I call it? Do I call it something? I don't know.
What is it like?
There's a chapter in my book about it. It has a little writing icon, so you know which one it is. But one of the problems is that we feel emotions that we don't want to feel. Right? They're uncomfortable. They're painful. Things like sadness. We have such an aversion or an avoidance resistance to it that we will create a whole, another response to that, like shame or fear. A lot of times we stuff it down because we're not supposed to feel that way. Like a good person wouldn't feel that ragey toward that person that just cut us off, right? Like, so we were like, okay, I'm not supposed to feel that way, so I'm going to shove it down. And so if we keep shoving things down, I mean, think about, deep pressing, deeply pressing down these emotions. Think about that word. It's very interesting. And so one of the ways to help us to healthily move through the emotions is not to avoid them and shove them down and run from them, but to allow them to be heard. It's a part of us that needs to be heard, and the sooner we can hear it or understand it or have compassion towards ourselves for that emotion, the sooner we can actually move through it, and it doesn't have to be as big of a compounded emotional deal that we create,
right?
So writing things down is really powerful. When you feel a trigger, is what we call it, when you're in a situation and somebody has done something and you just feel this like anger or frustration or sadness, or sometimes you don't even know what you're feeling. A lot of times I find that, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. I can't even handle this right now, right? So go, and get a sheet of paper and just write down what you're feeling. And I've had so many experiences where I write and realize that I'm feeling something I didn't realize. I am feeling shame in this moment. I'm feeling a lot of guilt and defensiveness because of that guilt. And, just when you unravel it, it's so powerful. Then you're like, oh, I never even realized that I had such a fear of this, or I never realized, like all these things that we can find out about ourselves. And one of the quotes that I love is by a man named,
you got it,
something, and he's a psychologist, but he was a psychologist that was very influenced by Zen Buddhism, which I love, that kind of science and spirituality. But he said awareness in and of itself is curative. So just being aware of what you're feeling can in a way help actually move through that and move out of it.
That's really awesome. I feel like just the concept of fight or flight, and I took my psychology class when I was 19, right? And it's been a couple of years since then, but just that concept, reminding me that, just being aware of that fight or flight has been very powerful to me in working through some of these things. But I tell you, writing has been really, really, I feel like I've really learned some interesting things as I've written.
Yeah.
It's really, and I haven't done it that much. I've done it maybe 4 times in the last couple of months, but it's really
powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how much, how many negative emotions we have around what we're feeling, which, I mean, one of my mentors kind of talks about how these things are kind of like garbage at the bottom of the sea, and it's coming up because it's something that needs to be addressed, and a lot of times we want to shove it back down. And so if you keep shoving down and shoving down and shoving down, and it keeps coming up for us to process, and we keep not doing it, think about how overwhelming that is and how overwhelming that feels to have all of those things coming up. And I think that's why so many people are like, I don't even know what I'm feeling. I don't even know what's wrong with me. It's just all right here, right? But the good news is, this is a spiritual side of me, I really believe that it's coming up so that we can move through it, and be able to come out of it, and become better.
Progress.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it feels unpleasant, but it's actually a blessing because it's coming up for a reason.
Yeah. I feel like I've had so many conversations recently just with people who are struggling emotionally, and people really maybe for the first time admitting it, or recognizing it, and having conversations about it. But I had a conversation with somebody today about just how important it is to feel, to really feel, and just allow ourselves to feel. And I think that's it. Stuff's coming up. We can move through this. And I believe there is, a way, and then progressing.
Yeah.
Overcoming hard things. I think that's what we're here for.
Yeah. And I really believe that we can be, that it can be taken from us, like I believe that as we work through things and as we use these tools, that we can live in a state of more peace. And so that is really the end result of the things that we're sharing with you today, is that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I mean, we're always in progress. We're never going to be like, oh, I never feel fear again. It's going to come up, but we're going to be able to handle it better, and going to be able to work with our bodies and understand and have tools to be able to process through it, have understanding, and work through it and learn what we need to learn from it.
Yeah. One thing I think when I struggle, when I'm in that emergency state, is that, like, my paradigm of life is that spiritually I should be able to kind of overcome these things.
Right.
And so I feel like I have a lot of guilt from that, because I'm either in a really low place or a really like revved up anxious place. And that I feel like that my connection with God should really be pulling me out of this. And so I feel like some of these tools are more like physical, like some of the tools that you're going to talk about right now are more like physical things that we can do. And it's been really interesting to me lately, because I feel like it's actually connected me more with God. You know what I mean? And that that I'm getting help spiritually because I'm physically doing things. Yeah, that makes sense, right?
So, yeah, it does. Yeah, and one of the things that, I mean, if we're going to be talking about spiritual stuff, like, for example, understanding that I'm totally in fight or flight right now. I really can see that in me. I can tell that I'm not, that I'm not in a place of rest and digest. And why is that? And then going back and looking, that's because I was so worried about, this, whatever, this thing in the future that, and part of like having faith, faith is huge in most spiritual, faiths. That's why they call it faith. Yeah, because it is believing that things are going to be okay, believing that things are going to work out. And so faith is like when we can see, my sympathetic nervous system was triggered because I was so fearful of what would happen. And fear is the opposite of faith. So as we, use these tools, but as we also implement, things like having faith in a higher power that is watching our back and will help us get out of what we're dealing with, that is part of that whole spirituality and the science and spirituality together, understanding and using them together to help us to be.
I just think it's that. It's a holistic concept, and I think it's really powerful. So yeah, it's cool.
So writing is one of the tools. So if you're finding yourself, that's really great for when you don't even know what you're feeling, or you're feeling so strongly and you don't have an outlet. Outlets are really good, but people don't generally like when they're the outlet. So you're screaming at someone, kind of unhealthy, kind of can do some damage. We don't like to damage our relationships in the process of feeling these emotions. So writing is a great way. Some people say go yell at a tree, but I just really feel like there's something about writing that really can unravel things and also can show you a lot about yourself. So that is a really great tool. The next tool, which is actually the first tool in my book, and it's really simple, so it's going to sound...
So buckle up.
It's going to be difficult, but you can do it. It's breathing. Yeah. So one of the cool things about, breathing is, well, you've probably noticed that our emotions affect our breath. When think about what happens in your chest and your breathing when you're stressed out, when you're fearful, when you're concerned or, stressed, like what a lot of times we feel like tightening of the chest, shallower breath, those are things that are caused because of being in the sympathetic nervous system, but we can also use it for the opposite. So we can use our breath to trigger our rest and digest state. So breathing is also one of the tools, or one of the like central things in a lot of spiritual practices as well. In fact, in the Bible, it talks about, man was just a lump of clay until God breathed life into his nostrils. And a lot of the, Eastern philosophies, they call it prana or ki or chi. It's the life force, the vital life force that is in our breath. That life force energy from the universe that helps us to live. And so as we deepen our breath, it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. Triggering meaning it brings that up. So and I could tell you why. It's because, but it doesn't sound as cool. But yeah, the in our lungs we have these little, the bronchioles, the
alveoli.
Yeah,
right.
Alveoli. Yeah. Good job.
Alveoli.
And our lungs look like trees, right? Like upside down trees, and they have like these branches and little, everything that branches out, right? Mm-hmm. So when we breathe in, they expand, and the parasympathetic nervous system is in charge of bringing that back to a state of rest. So as we breathe in, it triggers you're kind of tricking your body. Yeah, you're working with your body. But if we understand that, and when I breathe deeply, it shuts down the sympathetic nervous system and it triggers the parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, then you can help your body to go into that state.
Super cool.
Yeah. So that's why you breathe deeply when you're panicking or stressed out. It's just like breathe, It's not just like to help you stop running around. It's actually triggering in your body a physiological response that will help you be in a state of like everything's okay, things are okay, contentment.
Mm-hmm. Super cool.
So breathing. So and I in all of these practices in my book, I throw in essential oils because essential oils. So breathing and essential oils go really well together. Yes. Because essential oils they also balance the autonomic nervous system. A lot of them, and I have a list of those in my book. But one, I'll just tell you two that are really really highly studied and very there's a lot of scientific research on these, right? So one of them is bergamot or bergamot. I've heard it both ways.
I probably say it the wrong way, but bergamot sounds cool.
I think everybody else says it the wrong way. Wait, which way do you say?
I usually say bergamot.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. I don't know. I just think I'm
you
French.
You taught me everything.
Bergamot. But anyway, bergamot or bergamot is is really studied for its ability to calm down the nervous system and trigger, it doesn't just heavily do one, it balances it because we need both, right? They're both there to help us to function and to live. Mm-hmm. And so bergamot or bergamot, and then lavender is also probably the most tested essential oil there is. And that one has been tested for a lot of different things, but one of the things that I've noticed was all the research done on the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and how it balances that. It can really help with sleep. Oh yeah, that was one of the things that I didn't say. When you're in the sympathetic nervous system, sleep is like impossible, Yeah. So think of all the ways like you're just like laying awake, stressed out,
bouncing around.
All this insomnia problem we have.
Yeah.
Try some of these things before you go to bed. Try some lavender, or that's why lavender is so used. Lavender is because it triggers your parasympathetic nervous system. Try breathing really deeply right before bed to really open up your airways, and so it triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest, and also what was the third one? Oh yeah, writing. Like if you're feeling like you have a lot of emotions come up, try writing down. So try all those things before bed, and you will. I guarantee there will be a shift in some kind of insomnia patterns, possibly.
It's really interesting.
I
read a book a while back called Getting Things Done. And he talks about how our brain's like a computer. And it's just like, especially when we have lists and things that we're trying to accomplish, which most of us do, how important it is to just dump that down.
Mm-hmm.
Even just a list, like writing a list can be because then you're not going to forget it. You don't feel like you have to hold on to it.
Right.
So those are good things to write.
Yeah. Also. That's one of the things that I learned in this last training I went to is they talk about attention and how we can have attention on many, 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 many things and not realize that we're kind of holding on to like these, different things. Like like, oh, I'm supposed to get that for this person, and this person said this thing on Facebook that's really bugging me, and all these different things that we're holding on. And if we can do things to help like release that attention, like it doesn't matter anymore, or I'll take care of it, or have it taken care of, or different things like that, it can release us from being so scattered.
Yeah.
Why did I bring that up?
Because I probably brought it up. But just I think a lot of
because of writing the list down
can really feel
Yeah.
like a lion.
So like what you were talking about, writing a list before bed or whatever, to just get it so that you're not holding on to it, because that's one of those things. It's like, okay, I've got to do these things in the morning. I got to make sure that I don't forget, so I'm going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
But then we're not like allowing ourselves to be released of that.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and to sleep, you really have to release.
Yeah.
Like you have to kind of like let yourself go.
Yeah.
And it's hard to when you've got these kind of things going on.
Yeah.
So.
So let me think. I have my book that's on this laptop, and so I could like cheat and look.
Should we do it?
Let's cheat and look.
Chat it. Switch.
Just look really quick. Oh yeah. Yeah, one of the things is cognitive retraining. So cognitive retraining has to do with the kind of the stories we have in our minds, So like when you're in fight or flight, a lot of times the negative things, we're noticing a lot of the negative patterns and things, really highly sensitized to all the threatening information out there. And so as we're breathing, if we'll do some retraining of our mindset, and of course I couple that with essential oils, but you've heard of affirmations. Affirmations is like, I am safe.
I am enough.
I am enough. That's a good one. It's a big one.
I like that one.
Yeah, and some of those things that we, it kind of helps with what we were talking about faith before, is believing that things will work out, and that there's someone out there who's got our back, and that everything that happens to us is for our higher good, that we're learning and things are going to work out like that. Choosing to believe those things can help us in our overall autonomic nervous system balancing that, because if you're like, oh my gosh, it's all going to go downhill, and then we're going to, I remember, I'll give you an example. So my husband and I decided one of the things that we were going to do to help us with our stress level, but also our spirituality, was to get rid of a lot of our things. So we had a ton of stuff, just so much stuff. I'm actually thinking of putting a chapter in my book on just simplifying. Simplifying, because and everything, your schedule, your surroundings, your everything, because we're so bombarded with so much and it's really overwhelming and hard to handle. It's hard to deal with.
I think that's why people struggle so much right now too at Christmas time.
Oh yeah, all the things we're supposed to do, we need to do,
that would make things more magical.
Yeah, right. We're gonna be magical this year. Yeah. And then there's the stuff on top of it, on top of all of the expectations and things that we want to do, But yeah, simplifying is huge. I was talking about the cognitive retraining. Oh yeah, I was telling my story. So we got rid of all our stuff, and I had a lot of things come up, a lot of fears about that. Like what happens if I get rid of all my stuff and then I need stuff again, we got rid of like our couches and our tables and stuff. And it was just like, I just had this like, well, wait a minute, what are we doing? It's all not going to work out. And then I realized that as I went down that path, it does trigger a lot of fear and anxiety and stress. And you kind of go down as, it's kind of cycles into a really dark place. But if you choose to believe, I remember choosing to believe that it will work out. And if what I need, I will receive. These things that are actually true. Yeah. They're actually true. And it's hard for people to believe that sometimes. But if we can train our brain to start looking for the evidence of those positive messages, we need to be retrained in that way. And that is also part of faith, is faith in believing that things will work out. And they did, Like we have a couch and we have a table, and I have what I need. I have more than enough, actually. But anyway, so one of those things is find some affirmations that feel, you can Google affirmations. I've got some in my book. I'm going to add that one. I am enough. And we're all struggling with something different, so it could be different for different people. But just something that feels like, oh, I just love that feeling. I just love that feeling of I am enough. Yeah. Or, there's a financial one, because everybody needs a financial one right now. I trust God to provide what I need, God or the universe. I am lovingly supported. With God, all things are possible. Things like that. No matter what your belief or belief system is, I think we all can benefit from believing that things will work out. And so one of the things is to breathe. So use your breathing to get back into parasympathetic nervous system. Use some essential oils. All essential oils will benefit you on some level. So if you don't have bergamot or lavender,
everybody's got lavender.
Yeah, well, citrus oils too, right? Citrus oils are awesome. All the citrus oils. I might put some more in there because there are a lot of studies done on them. But just breathe deeply. Get grounded, and then say a phrase, and keep saying it until you feel something. Until you feel a shift, or until you feel somewhat more peaceful or grounded.
Yeah. One of my favorite oils right now that really helps me feel grounded is called vetiver. And it's a root. And I hated it. The first time I smelled it, it was so stinky. It's like a wet leather weirdness.
I think it smells like smoke, or like a cabin in the woods, like a smoky.
Well, usually I'd like that, but this one's weird. But I actually really like it now. It's like a really heavy oil,
it's really
and
deep.
it stays on me most of the day, and it's one that really has benefited me, just helped me feel more grounded.
Yeah.
I've been trying to meditate and breathe while I'm meditating, and
that's why breathing is part of meditating.
Yes. Well, and it's really what you focus on when you're meditating is just really trying to focus on your breath and let everything else kind of go. But I've been going to a group meditation, and this man that has this group meditation, he says whenever he is feeling a strong emotion, whatever it is, that's when he knows he needs to go. So it's kind of like he recognizes it. He's trained himself to recognize that he is feeling that deep emotion, and then goes and does something still.
Yeah.
And I think, there's a whole other class where we could talk about when we smell something, what exactly happens emotionally, with our parasympathetic and sympathetic systems, nervous systems. But I think one of the most important things that we can do when we're in this state is recognizing where we're at, and like taking a break, doing something for ourselves. Like these are some really great, usually you wouldn't really think of writing as doing something for yourself, but it's being still. And I think it's really powerful. It has been for me when I do that.
And I love that, because we so much think that, like, if we keep going and going and going, like we'll just just like get over it, walk it off,
Yeah.
And you can keep trying that.
It's not working. It's not working for you guys. It's not working for me.
Yeah. So I like that. Like, just take some time to allow yourself to process things, and allow yourself to, give yourself a minute. In fact, okay, so I'm going to tell a story, and I'm going to botch it, but it's going to be good. It's an analogy, so it can be whatever I want it to be, but somebody else wrote it, so I don't know. It's my version of it. But so there was a man in a forest with a saw, and he's like cutting, he's furiously cutting this tree down, and he's just like really panicked and trying to get this tree cut down, and another man comes up and he says, "Your saw is kind of dull. Like if you sharpen the blade, you'd actually cut a lot faster. And he goes, no, I do not have time to stop and sharpen my saw because I have got to get this stuff done, you know? And you just think about, that analogy of just like, how many of us like, no, I can't stop. Like, I've got to get this done and I don't have time for me. I don't have time to sharpen the saw. And I really like that analogy because it's really important for us to sharpen the saw because it's not only like more time effective, but like think of what it does for you when you're just, like trying to do something and it's not working. And then if you get grounded and are able to come at it from a kind of a fresh, more sharpened place, like you can fly, Oh
yeah. We'll start turning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's great.
So those are a couple of the tools.
Yeah.
There are more, but I think those would be good to start with.
We'll put a link to your book on this, and I'm excited to see it.
It's kind of not finished yet, so you guys might watch this and go, "Where's the link?" And it'll be done pretty soon, probably within a week. So
yeah, I think it'll be great. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited that it's a project that you felt inspired to do, and I think it's kind of taking bits and pieces from different places, and I think it's really powerful. So anyway, I think that's it.
Yeah. So go try those, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Especially at this season. People might be watching this not around Christmas, but if you are, use it.
Yeah.
Take some time. Allow yourself to have a little bit of space to address and have compassion for your emotions and to breathe and allow your parasympathetic nervous system to kick in.
It's cool. Like, I love the science to recognize exactly what's going on. I think, like I started with, I think a lot of us are struggling with these things. And I'm going to share one powerful tool that I think has been helpful for me. And it's sharing that I struggle, I think a lot of us hold it inside, and it's not okay to have these feelings. It's not okay to be experiencing anxiousness or low mood. And I don't think you necessarily need to share it on Facebook. I don't know that that's like the venue. Maybe it is. I think when we at least are aware of this, we'll find other people that can help us. And so finding the people or the venue or the person that you can talk to about it. And
honesty is so liberating, like when we're not trying so hard to appear strong and to appear the way we're supposed to appear, or not to look weak in front of people or vulnerable, and you're just like really like, oh, I have got to do something about this, or when we're just real about it. I think it helps other people too, because we all feel this way.
We're all
how many of you have emotions?
Yeah, totally. And I just don't think we're alone, and that I feel like I can move farther with other people on my team, and so anyway, that's just one last thought.
I love that. It's powerful.
All right, thanks for coming. We'll be doing more of these.
Yeah.
So awesome. Okay, bye-bye.